Eileen.
Yeah.
Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7 o'clock and ask the city clerk to read the statement of compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act into the record.
This meeting is being held in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, with the meeting notice provided to the Huntington County Democrat, the Trenton Times, various individuals on the listserv, department heads, the city engineer, and the city attorney. The meeting will be recorded and streamed live using the Zoom meeting platform. The meeting agenda offers the planned action items of the governing body to the extent known at the time of the publication. Roll call.
Yes, please.
Councilwoman Lambert.
Here.
Councilman Sanders.
Here.
Councilman Stegman. Council President Taylor.
Here.
Mayor No.
Here. All right, we're going to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and then we'll remain standing for a moment of silence. And tonight's moment of silence, I'd really like us to think about with appreciation on the work that this council has done this year. You guys want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance out there?
Yes.
Okay, you got to stand up though. All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you could please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Before we dig in with approval of the meeting minutes, I'm going to call a special moment or two public comment period for anybody who might wish to say anything in relation or in regard to anybody on the council who may actually be ready to step off the council this year. So if there's anybody out there who would like to speak, please raise your hand, come to the podium over here and feel free to make your comment or ask your question. And maybe have your name, please, and your residence, your address.
My name is Dahlia Redstrom, and I think that we should have 4 days at school.
Now move.
All right.
4 days.
She lives at 221 North Union Street with me. I'm Lauren Bromstrom-Bells, also a resident at the same address. And I'm here tonight. I want to especially honor our outgoing council members. Ward, thank you for, I think, your very, very long tenure of service to the city and your dedication to making Limerickville a better place for all residents. I really appreciate the expertise you brought to that job. And Julia, as council president, you carried the big load. I think as a professional in the field, you know, of urban planning, but also dedicated to the, you know, justice and equity in all of the work that you do. Oh gosh, yes. I just want to say, you know, thank you for your public service and for your, you know, honest and always heartfelt commitment to your term here as a leader of our city. I think you've always put the least among us and their needs at the top of your mind and at the top of your thoughts in terms of your short, long-term planning. And I also especially want to honor your response to the Hurricane Ida flooding, because I think it was exemplary what you did. So thank you.
Please.
Mommy was mighty good.
Hi, I'm Jen Hunter and I live at 135 North Union Street. And I want to thank Ward. You've been a council member here since I have lived here. I moved in 2007 and yeah, it's we have loved living here. We decided to make this our forever home despite great challenges to doing so. And I'm just, you know, having a friend on council, Julia Keller, I'm very lucky to call a friend. has enlightened me to the kind of work that you do. And I'm just so grateful, really, to each and every one of you for what the cost of participation in this kind of local government is. I would say for the most part, I don't often worry about Lambertville being great because of all of you. And so I'm so grateful to our elected representatives. And to Julia, I can't wait to have you back. So, but thank you for everything that you have done. I know that there has been joy and real moments of progress and change and learning. And now it's over. And we can't wait to have you all to ourselves. So just to be selfish there, I'm very grateful that this is your last meeting. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for allowing us to talk.
Of course. Is there anybody who else wants to speak to this particular topic? I mean, we don't typically do this, but I think some people might need to get home and do homework. Consider what a 4-day work week actually looks like in the future or something like that. Anyway, yes.
Thank you. Evan Meyer, Internet. I want to thank both board and Julie for the great work you guys have done. I've had a lot of fun working together this ordinance review board, and Julie, thanks for everything you did for the public. A little emotional, but I remember the first time we really talked, you were en route to like Vermont or something for a wedding, and you were talking about all this stuff because you're so concerned about the people here. And
So this, because this wasn't an official public comment period, I think not be forced to close it.
You're looking at me.
I think we're good on this, right? Thank you so much for coming and sharing those good wishes with our esteemed council members, and we're very glad you did. So feel free to hang around or feel free to go home and do whatever you need to do. Approval of the meeting minutes. So I would ask for a motion to approve the following minutes as submitted and amended. The November 12th meeting minutes, the November 17th meeting minutes, the November 17th closed session minutes, the December 1st meeting minutes, and the December 1st closed session minutes. And I would also just kind of throw in there that I asked everybody if they could take that time to review Sharon Taylor Ogren's report from our time on the 12th. We will have that as an addendum. Cindy and I will read over. Thank Karen for taking the time that morning to spend with us and write such a comprehensive and I thought reflective set of, summary. Thank you. Summary, not minutes, but not result. I appreciate your time.
It was great to have her there. It was great to have her there, and she always does a great job in the public. Asset to our community. Let's take one little note. We're going to finalize the Lily mentioned at 2 levels.
Okay. Thank you.
I second Karen's efforts. She's a meticulous note keeper. I always look forward to her notes on the Lambertville Facebook page to help me remember what happened the night before. It's helpful. And really appreciate it. I did take the opportunity to look at it. The only nitpicky thing I would say is we've got a couple of acronyms in there. And I think for the public, it'd be great to spell them out so that people know what they mean.
All right, so were there any questions about any of the other minutes that we that were submitted for this time period?
Make a motion there.
Thank you. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next is the consent agenda. A couple things about the consent agenda. I think that we are going to remove from the consent agenda resolution number 208, 2022 for some discussion. And the only other thing that I would just note in this consent agenda is that we do have a resolution to authorize the contract with Lieutenant Robert Brown for 2023. I just want to personally say that I think Lieutenant Brown has done an excellent job this year. He and I have been like, I don't know, we've been like a couple of, don't want to say partners in crime, but we've done a lot together this year, and I appreciate his unparalleled dedication. He and I can text and have conversations at 5 o'clock in the morning or midnight, and we routinely do. So I think he continues to be an incredible asset for the city. And, as we go through our business of governing here, I think it's important to make sure that we take time to recognize people in the city rather than just throw them into a resolution. So I do want to thank you, Lieutenant Brown, for my relationship with you and for your excellent work at the city. And I don't know if anybody else has any comments about that, but
I second those comments. All right.
I'd like to agree with
Can we
that.
do applause? It's applause.
here's some applause.
Oh, embarrassing.
I know, it's gonna be a night of embarrassing moments, hopefully.
Well, better than being like old brown.
So accepting resolution 208-2022, are there any other questions or comments about the resolutions in the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, I will ask for motion.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of adopting the resolutions number 204-2022 through 207-2022, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Right, one resolution that we're going to talk a little bit about, we pulled this out, is resolution number 208-2022. This is the resolution to award the contract to Clark Caden Hints for the Possum property in an amount not to exceed $21,500 plus $1,000 for reimbursable expenses charged to bond ordinance number 11-2021. So a couple things about this for me before I open it up to the council for conversation. A few weeks ago, in Evergreen Matters, I wrote about the importance of communicating with the council ideally before meetings. And this I've tried to do this year. And this one was one that got by me. There's been a couple of busy weeks with interviewing professionals and other things. So to the extent that, I can express regret that we didn't have a chance to talk about this individually before the council meeting, I would like to do that. This is something that we put out to bid, I don't know, back in, I forget when it was, in November. This was really designed to help carry the conversation forward about what we're going to be doing with the Possum property next year. I actually pulled this from the agenda earlier in the week because I had some concerns about an email exchange I had with Green Acres, wherein some of the, and I have the emails here so I can refer to them as needed, but there was some concern, not concern really, but there were some questions about what we might and might not be able to do in the exception area if we proceed with Green Acres. So let's do the 4 bands here for a second. I think it's important to just refer to this email. So, I wrote to Green Acres to ask a little bit about guidance in the exclusion area or the exception area, and received an email back just saying that, reminding us that the property falls within the Lambertville Historic District and is listed on the state and federal registers of historic places. And then noting that a meeting or a conference call with the State Historic Preservation Office, Green Acres, and the Office of Transactions and Public Land Administration strongly recommended, just to really go through and make sure that we understand what we can do in that part of the exception area, and just to kind of review, I think, how we can use what we can expect if we see Green Acres funding. So, there was some concern about that, just because I was, I thought maybe until we met with them, it might be good to, consider holding off on this resolution to award that. So that was my thinking as I kind of went along this week. And then I had a conversation with Council President Taylor this morning, and I gave it some. I think about this stuff a lot, and I gave this some more thought. And I think that following the conversation, I thought it was a good idea to actually put this back on for tonight's agenda. And I apologize again for the short notice. And part of that is pursuant to, we talked about this at the last meeting, that I wanted to acknowledge and recognize the work that this council did with Mayor Fall during the purchase of the property. And to the extent that, we could allow, that we could allow Councilman Sanders and Council President Taylor to have a voice in this important part of the process that we consider doing that. So that's also, I think, a point that I would like to highlight as we consider this conversation. And I'm going to let Council President Taylor speak for a couple of minutes on this, and then probably follow up with a few more thoughts that I've had, just in terms of the evolution of my thinking about bringing this back to the agenda. And then we'll open it up to, kind of council questions and concerns or thoughts. Okay.
Yeah, I also apologize for the late notice. When I found out this had been pulled, I did not agree with that, and the reasons are.
Would you mind speaking to
Of course,
microphone
yeah.
so I'm sure I can hear you?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so there's just a couple things I want to point out about this. The issues raised by Green Acres are not new to us. We've always known this property is going to be reviewed by the State Historic Preservation Office. We've always known that if we go ahead with Green Acres, there's an issue with the shared access. I shouldn't even say issue, just something we have to consider. So none of that was new to us. But more importantly, when we purchased this property, we actually passed a separate resolution, Resolution 59/2021, which read in part, the governing body desires to clarify its intent to prepare, review, and approve by further resolution formal plans for any future improvements to the property prior to undertaking any such improvements. So the intention was that we would have done this a long time ago. Mother Nature intervened. We had to deal with Ida and all of the repair work. We're at a point now where there really isn't any reason why we shouldn't be moving ahead to talk about and have the public process for planning for the entire site. And that's one thing I want to know. I didn't catch this. In the resolution before us tonight, it says that we'd be hiring a planner to guide us through the public process for the exclusion area or the exception area. It's my understanding that we'd be talking about the entire property. So open space, we can still do things on the open space, and we need to determine what those things are. So it's not just the exception area. So I understand that there are lingering disagreements about whether we should own the property, what we should do with the property. I don't think us bringing on professionals to help us collect that information, evaluate that information, and make final determination. I think we need to do that no matter what, and I don't really see any reason for waiting, which is why I asked for this to come back on for tonight.
And just to follow up on a couple of points there, when I agree with you entirely, and I have to say that this has been a very intense year for me in terms of the workload, and I want to do everything well, and I want to do it with justice. I think that it's important that we consider relying on our professionals. I don't always know how to move forward on all of these things, right? And it's always hard, and it's not easy to find council people or volunteers to help formulate things. There's only so many hours in a week. So, I think that we need this we need this help in terms of how we're going to move forward. And I looked more carefully at the proposal that Clark Institute sent today, and I think in some ways it really frames kind of where my thinking is on this. On page 2, one of the things they put in bold is just a simple sentence that your plan will be implementable. So, if we're prepared to award this contract, I think that what's in here is a promise to analyze existing conditions, for example. They'll assemble all the relevant information regarding existing conditions of the farm and provide a basis for the public and the city to inform the vision plan. I think that there's already a basis for kind of the work that we have ahead of us, and they reference that. Some of the surveys that we did, in the past in 2021, and as I consider this process, I think that it's been a while now, and I think people have had time to think about it individually. What I want to be especially sensitive to is if there is a shift potentially in kind of public thinking on this project, that we bring the public in as early as possible. I have personal feelings about what to do. I've kept them private, because I don't want to some degree, I want to make sure that the public is in step with what our process is. I think it's important to bring them in now, and I don't think that that avoiding this contract is going to. I just think it's good. I think that, you know, what I would propose doing is if we award this contract, you know, I would bring in our planner, I would bring in Bill Local to this meeting in January with SHPO, Green Acres, and you know, the other agency, so that they can help me provide the basis of information that we're going to need to start actually making decisions about, you know, the things that we've been talking about, whether we take, you know, whether we do Green Acres, and there are a lot of other questions that come up. So that's my thinking on this, and I'm quite comfortable with this process, and I want to make sure that it's done in a public way, and that, you know, we're not just being guided by kind of our individual ideas here that have developed over the course of a period of time, you know, over the course of the year. So that's my thinking. I'm happy to open this up to the council for their thinking.
Lord, since you're on, I'd like to hear a board, having experienced this process. I was on council when we approved to buy it. So I just like to see the board.
Thanks for calling me, Steve. Well, I've spent some time today, some of my measure the last 2 hours trying to catch up on this a little bit. I appreciate the council president. Remember who all voted on that? I certainly know that I did vote on that. I certainly am of the belief that we need professional assistance in this endeavor. And I also recognize that we've been sitting with this problem and that there's I also recognize that 15 days away from being replaced by someone else. And so, you know, I'd love for there to be a common purpose here. I don't know where. So curious to hear from. Yeah, we need a planner. And yes, the concern that I've heard that had been raised was about whether we have enough information. I guess the question I pose is, if we were to meet with SHPO and Green Acres in January or whatever, what would be the harm of securing the services of that? That whatever transpires in that meeting. There's information that's unknown at this time that would cause us to hold back. That's not understandable.
I could just respond briefly to that. Whether or not we move forward with the Green Acres application and actually preserving the open space, that is not relevant to what we all said in this resolution that I cited. What we talked about was the property in general. So for us to own this property and move ahead, is to do anything proactive, we have to do this public process. So the Green Acres is a parallel track from that perspective.
And to me, I think everything should be on the table as we look at this. Include the sale of that property. Certainly own a lot of property these days, and so hope that the plan. So I guess I want to better understand if there is a sense of that there's a harm in securing services now. Information or something else.
Well, yeah, and the only other thing I would just add to that, thank you for that. I do think that, you know, I love the idea of moving forward on this, right? You know, but at the same time, I'm also mindful that things have to be done in the time. Right? So I don't question it, but I also feel as though this is a good time for us, as I said, in my last meeting, to pivot to this. So, my only other thought here is that, if we didn't move forward with awarding this contract, we would have to make a decision in January, February, and rebid it. And, I do think there's a time thing here. I do think that there's a value in looking at what's being offered now and seeing, I hope, some value in that. So
I think we should wait. I made this clear to the mayor, even before the email came back from Fair Share. One thing jumps,
Green Acres.
Green Acres, I'm so sorry. I'll vote on Green Acres tonight, it's fine. But where we got a response from, after your outreach to Kelly, at my asking you to find out what we can and can't do, it's great. But when she responded, she said a meeting or conference call with SHPO, Green Acres, and the Office of Transaction and Public Land Administration is strongly recommended. That's strongly recommended, really stuck with me. About waiting until we have this meeting. I'm not opposed to the process and the plan and hiring somebody. But I would just rather have this meeting first, because as you're very involved with the ins and outs of this, of the organizations, I'm not. So I would rather hear from these organizations with, and just start a conversation rather than approving this tonight. And as I said, I'm not opposed to doing this. I